Regarding the Hugo Dummett discovery, and you mentioned Hugo running into him at UQ way back when.
Yeah.
And so, anyway, perhaps you'd like to just tell us the story of the Hugo Dummett discovery, maybe even how Hugo became affiliated with this, and how important was the testing of an IP chargeability anomaly in the north. And one related question, was it the last hole of your program that cut mineralization?
Most of the drilling initially, because of the good intercept at southwest.
Charlie's second hole.
Yes, Charlie's second hole, so it was a no-brainer just to drill that out. And then, having done most of that, at the same time a lot of drilling was taking place at Central, and from the BHP geophysics just to the north of Central Oyu, there was a very pronounced IP chargeability doughnut. Most porphyry geologists would take one look at that and say, oh, that's a classic pyrite halo. It was that obvious. Anyway, eventually we got round to testing the doughnut, and a 10-hole program was designed from east to west at specific intervals across the northern part of the doughnut. All of this is undercover. There was no outcrop. So the first 9 holes had encountered quite a lot of pyrite. As Dick would say, IP indicates pyrite. However, the 10th hole was drilled, and it had some very interesting stratigraphy. It went to its target depth, and I think it was David Crane who said, well, we should push this a bit further. And EMATS was on site at the time. I think Charlie was on break, so between them they made the decision to continue the hole, which was fine with us. Anyway, to cut a long story short, the hole continued, and then it entered into a zone of very high-grade mineralisation. The intercept, if I remember right, it was 638 metres at 1.1% copper. Of course, when you entered the mineralisation, there was absolutely no point in stopping the hole, just keep going. And so,
how long was the hole?
It was about 800 metres, I think, something like that. The top 150 was all in cover rocks.
Yeah.
And then they started to come into the interesting stratigraphy. David said, Annie Mance said, well, let's just keep this going. And they did, and that's the discovery.
She must have had pretty good drillers then.
Yes, we did. Major were drilling. A number of contractors, actually, but Major were the heavy lifters, and they had good rigs. Ultimately, when we were drilling Hugo out, they had UDR 5000s, and these were huge hydraulic rigs that could reach 3 kilometres. It was at the peak there was 21 drill rigs on Oyu Tolgoi. But to get back to the discovery of South Hugo, it was clear. It was a great hit, no question. So then the thing was, well, what does the geophysics mean? So it was decided to do the same kind of survey, the same line spacing, but to change the orientation. The previous orientation, which had defined the doughnut, was on north-south lines. So the next survey was done on east-west lines. It gave a very different picture. It clearly showed a chargeability high for kilometres along a north-northeast axis, and that better reflected the mineralisation. As to why that is so, I haven't really found anyone that can explain that. Of course, it was indicating very high sulfide content, and then it was obvious that just stepping out along that northeast axis going north was the way to go, and the more we did that, the more we found. Hugo was then becoming uncovered as a giant, and at that time a lot of it, at least half the main ore body had been found. It was dipping to the north all undercover. Hugo was involved, and he went, or was required to go to Ivanhoe's project in the Platte Reef in South Africa.
Could you just say what his involvement was?
Oh yeah, he was development manager, and he was a great person to work with, but he was looking for other opportunities globally for Ivanhoe, and the perfect person to do that. He was really enthusiastic. So anyway, he went on a trip to the the project at what's now called the Flat Reef, and travelled from Mongolia to Hong Kong to South Africa, and then got in a car and went to drive up to the site at night, and I think we all know that he just tragically fell asleep at the wheel. So we felt it was appropriate to name the new discovery after Hugo.
Yeah, he's a great bloke.